Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to this channel and give this video a like.
Podcast below in the description. Five-time Pro Bowler Kyle Juszczyk, free agent to be, joined us on our last podcast.
Matt Mayoka, our buddy, wrote about Deshaun Watson and a potential Niners trade, and what he wrote was no Niners player should be off limits. Then Ty Dunn on Friday at his website, Go Long, wrote about Deshaun Watson and a potential Deshaun trade, and in that article had this very interesting nugget, Middlecoff. A source indicates that Miami and San Francisco would be at the top of Deshaun Watson's list. Kyle Shanahan can dangle a package of talented players in a deal, while Miami obviously has the ability to blow Houston away with its boatload of draft picks and an asset in Tonga Vailoa that Caserio was reportedly high on out of Alabama.
Yeah, to me, there's a wild card in this entire trade scenario. Obviously, the 49ers have a quarterback that once upon a time was drafted and spent a lot of time with the Patriots, who clearly they thought, was the Steve Young to their Joe Montana. And it just, now looking back, it turns out Brady ain't Joe Montana, and surely Jimmy ain't Steve. But it had a feel to that in 2017. Regardless what happens, though, if Caserio really liked him, that would be of interest, right? They're going to need a quarterback. And I also think you have to look at Tua going, he was just a top 5 pick. If this guy really liked him coming out, they'd have to balance those two players. Because it's not like the best thing Tua has going for him, right, is his contract, not his play, and would be the potential you would believe in him if you liked him in college. Where Jimmy, his contract, while it's, a lot more money than Tua, you're not stuck with him. You can pivot fast. You can cut him after a year. I do think it's interesting, though, when you see with the Niners, like, I think it's pretty clear now, and I've heard this, you've heard this, that Deshaun Watson would be interested in coming to Kyle Shanahan. Shocker, right? To go to Kyle, that's not shocking. Then you look at what would they give him, and picks, one thing. I go back and forth, like, they had the opportunity to draft this guy once upon a time. I don't like going back to the well and paying for it, but it's just, I think if you just hold on to that moment 3 or 4 years ago, it's kind of stupid. We are where we are now.
Yeah, don't hurt yourself twice.
Yeah, so what players are we talking about, right? We made fun of with Kyle Juszczyk. Kittle has all these special deals around here. I don't think he would be available. Like, I think that they just signed him to a contract. I don't think he's one of the guys. I think if you're the Houston Texans, the two guys that would actually be of a lot of interest would be Fred Warner, who has a chance to be one of the best middle linebacker in the league for the next 5-6 years, and Nick Bosa, who just went number 2 overall, was easily the defensive player of the year. The problem, he had a major knee injury. So to me, Fred Warner's a no-brainer. Like, Fred Warner is worth a first-round pick. If I trade you Fred Warner, you were getting elite value there.
Feels like he might be worth more than a first-round pick. If the Niners were to trade him, you wouldn't trade him for a 1. They'd get more than 1 if they decided to trade Fred Warner.
Like a 1 and 2 threes or something?
Yeah, I'm just saying if it was like Fred Warner's on the block, what are you going to get? You're getting more. No, you might get. I think you might get 2 1s. I think you certainly would get a 1 and a 2, or maybe 2 2.
If Jamal Adams got 2 1s and a 2, yeah, fair to say.
Yeah,
100%. Bosa healthy after his rookie year, you'd be like, what's he worth? Well, you'd be like, well, whatever Khalil Mack's worth. But really, you'd argue more, because part of Khalil was like, I had to give him $90 million guaranteed. Bosa, you'd be like, well, he's year 1 of his rookie deal. To me, once the knee goes, makes it a little complicated, right? Like, he had a major knee injury, and he's a guy that's been hurt before. That being said, the Niners surely expect him to be back. Do you want to make a habit? This is a quarterback, so I get it, but that'd be back-to-back years if they included one of these players in a package of picks of trading DeForest Buckner, who's now team captain and an all-pro level player for the Colts, and then if you traded Bosa or Fred Warner. I mean, those are Lynch and Kyle's 2 best picks beside Kittle, right? I mean, it's a pretty crazy 2-year span. It's one thing, like, Belichick got a bunch of credit. Mankin, Seymour, Asante Samuel. Yeah, he had Tom Brady the entire time. Like, the Niners have, like, kind of in a weird spot. I'm a little torn. Not that I'm anti-acquiring Deshaun Watson. Almost said Deshaun Jackson. I just think it's a little riskier once you start involving these star players than it just is like some NBA no-brainer trade.
I agree. I think you could make the case that the Bucks got Tom Brady and Tom Brady put him over the top to win the Super Bowl. But the Bucks don't win the Super Bowl if to get Tom Brady they traded Tristan Wirfs, Antoine Winfield, Devin White, and Sean Murphy Bunting, and Vita Vea, right? Those are the last 3 first rounders and 2 of their last second rounders.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of legitimacy to what you're saying. I also
there has
think
to be some balance to this, right? I mean,
yeah, you do need a team. Like, this is a team, and team is not just a cliche that coaches throw around, right? Like, that's what it takes to ultimately win. And here you have the hardest thing to do is like find all pros and to draft all pros. Wouldn't you agree? It's the hardest thing consistently to do in the NFL is to draft all pros. It's the lifeblood of teams.
well, because it's a double whammy. You acquire a good player, but you acquired a good player that you wanted from the jump. Like, you believed in that guy coming out when we don't know, right? That's part of a draft pick. He's like, could he be good? Could he be bad? Who knows? But you, the character, all the stuff you felt good about, and then he's great. Like, he's your guy.
Well, do the Niners with Deshaun, but no Fred Warner or Nick Bosa? Now, we don't know how your team ultimately comes together, but I don't look at that and go, okay, that's winning the Super Bowl, because I know who your best players are, and you're talking about trading those best players. So I wouldn't trade those players and then add first-round picks to them, right? Like, that's your point. It's like these guys are worth multiple ones. I think the other major factor in all of this, like the first thing we have, so Schefter was on with us. Ty Dunn wrote it. Multiple people have said it, but Schefter said it with us, so we'll use that as a reference to Schefter. That the Texans right now are still very committed to trying to get Deshaun to stay. And
he wants out. It's not like he's technically available.
Right.
But
I think ultimately, if he sticks to this course, they will be forced to trade him. I don't think it makes a lot of sense for them to decide right now, and there's a variety of reasons, but here's one. They have to know, I think, whether or not they view the quarterback they could get with Miami's third pick as a better player than Tua Tagovailoa before they do any trade. Because I think ultimately the Dolphins can offer them the best possible package for a team that's rebuilding. The Dolphins can offer them the third pick and Tua and another one this year and next year's one, right? Like,
AKA their pick back.
Their pick back plus the Dolphins pick plus Tua plus next year's one. But to me, you can't do that trade, which I think is the best trade that would be available to them. You cannot do that trade.
Did you include Tua in that deal?
What's that?
Did you include Tua?
Yeah, Tua, 2 ones, and next year's one. So 2 ones this year, Tua, and next year's one. But to me, you cannot do that deal if you're Miami.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. But do you think Miami would do that deal for Deshaun?
Yeah.
They would, right? So you cannot do that deal. I said Miami. You cannot do that deal if you're Houston until you know whether or not you like the quarterback that you think will be available at 3. Because if you like, let's say, Justin Fields more than Tua, it doesn't make any sense for you to take Tua back in that trade, right? Like, I think part of the delay is Miami's got to figure out.
Could always flip them.
Yeah, you could. But if I've got all the leverage, I don't want some guy that I'm going to flip for a second.
Yeah. Why do I want to do extra legwork to get rid of another guy?
So I think part of the delay could be is Miami's got to figure out, is Tua our next quarterback or is one of these other guys our next quarterback? To me, that holds up the whole thing until they know the answer to that. Now, like you said, maybe they like Jimmy and, but.
There's not a date in February that anything has to get done. I do think they got to have an idea by the start of free agency because other teams got to figure shit out, right? What I'm going to do with my quarterback situation. So if you're talking the Niners, Miami can wait. Miami is the one, but the Niners can't. Like, there might be, hey, Belichick calls. We'll give you a third for Jimmy. I mean, you might do that regardless. But I'm just saying, or, hey, Sam Darnold, we're going to make a move. We're going to trade Sam Darnold. Kyle, are you interested? It's either you or the Bears or the Colts. Like, you got to know. Like, you can't hold out hope in a situation like this when quarterback is by far your number one situation. That then, like, part of the Niners, unlike the Colts, their team is not under contract. Trent Williams, he needs a new contract. He plays a pretty important position, left tackle, right? Fred Warner, he needs an extension. But this is how you need to build your roster because you have all these moving parts. To me, the Niners kind of got to know by the start of free agency. I don't see them. This is not a draft day move for them because Deshaun makes a lot of money. they would ideally have made a bunch of moves. Like, it's not like, hey, Trent, just hold with us till late April, and then we'll figure it out. Like, that's how many offers is that guy going to have, right, to sign a deal?
Yeah.
And he changes your cap space. Do you go all in? Do you just roll back with Jimmy and go to the draft hoping? I don't think the Niners, to me, Miami, great position. They could wait it out. They actually hope that it takes a little while. Why? Because it knocks out other teams. Like the Niners, to me, kind of drop out of the race if this doesn't play out. We're forcing a little bit right now, like in February. But I'd say those first couple weeks of March, there needs to be like, there can't just constantly be hanging up the phone. Like, no, he's not available. Then the Niners are like, well, hey, guys, it's like you're fucking house shopping and the person tells you their house is not on sale. You can't keep begging to buy the house.
Right, and you
need a place to live.
And your lease ends on the 31st. So on the 1st, you got to move and put your couch somewhere, your body.
That's where I would say if the Texans are going to play hardball, as they should, the Miami has to be the leader in the clubhouse, assuming that they are interested to get really aggressive because these other teams are going to have to move. Like the Bears and Colts don't have quarterbacks. The Niners have a quarterback situation that clearly they're not that comfortable with. And there's just like, the saying of the bird in the hand and two in the bush. Like you could wait for Deshaun and really he'd be equivalent to like 10 birds in the bush. But I think because of their other variables on their roster, they have so many free agents.
Yeah.
And their cap situation is a little murky. I'll be shocked if the Texans hold on to him to draft day, which I think is very, very possible. I think the Niners then are out of the deal by then because they have either made a move or kept with Jimmy, but their cap space would be in flux unless Jimmy goes in that deal, which there's just a lot of moving parts here, guy.
Unless they really are open to, we might just stick it out with if we don't love anything, we'll just stick with Jimmy. Yeah. Right. And if like Darnold doesn't count as love, then it's like, yeah, we'll just stick with Jimmy. If the Deshaun thing comes together, great. If not, we'll just roll it back with Jimmy. Like that, if they're in that position, then they're not in a rush.
If they were to trade for Sam Darnold, Deshaun's over. Which no one's arguing that Darnold is a better player than Deshaun or whatever. Like if they get rid of Jimmy, keep just Darnold for and get Darnold for a third or something, like that's just maybe they still draft a guy, but I'm sorry, like the Watson deal is just dead.
Well, absolutely. I'm just my point is though that if they don't view Darnold as a major upgrade to Jimmy, if that's the case, then they could afford to wait because it means they're probably content starting the season with Jimmy if it's not for Deshaun, if it's not a home run. I know Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I know he has a no trade clause, so he controls it. I do think you got to throw the Jets in there because, like the Dolphins, they have the ability to get even the better quarterback, right? Because they're drafting two. They could give Sam Darnold back. That gives him a holdover. They have multiple picks because of Jamal Adams. I have to include them, especially when the name, from all the reports where Deshaun wasn't mad about. Everyone's like, he wanted Eric Bieniemy. No, he told them to interview Robert Saleh. Remember, and they did.
Yeah,
so
he might love.
Like, if you wanted Robert Saleh, well, now Robert Saleh's in New York, and New York's a big market. Like, kind of makes a little sense.
Yeah, I think it does
though,
too.
From a football standpoint, though, I do view if it takes Sam Darnold, the number 2 pick, and 2 other ones, like you're going to somewhat of a situation a little bit like the Texans, and maybe you don't even care. But that team is not very good.
Yeah.
Right. And they're getting rid of all their assets to get good.
Right. But I think from the Niners standpoint, is there a scenario where you could do the deal where you only part with 1 pick? If it's Bosa, and again, this is not a headliner part of the deal, but if it includes Garoppolo somehow and it includes another first, so you view Garoppolo as a second or a third, you view Bosa as 2 1s, and then you include another one, you're probably still short. Ayuk, I mean, you just used a first-round pick on him. He's not Bosa or Warner, but he's.
I'm not in.
No, I know you're not. I'm just saying, what is the package? I understand. I agree with you. I'm just saying, what is the package? Everything is always about what's the minimum package the Texans would accept.
I'm going to end on this, and I believe this. And listen, the guy has to be good. But I think when you look at the AFC, the 2 best teams in the AFC, Andy Reid, Sean McDermott, they got their young quarterback that they believed in, and they coached him up. Now, Andy's an offensive guy. Sean McDermott's not, but the Niners are paying Kyle all this money. Listen, I know Jed and the people and the other elements that aren't in football aren't like into telling Kyle what to do, but I would really hammer home like, Kyle, I saw what you did with Jimmy Garoppolo. I can't imagine if you could get your hands on a Trey Lance, a Justin Fields, what you could do with a guy like that. Like that to me should be the goal of getting a guy from the jump and then to use with all these players that you've it's been a little hit or miss, but you have acquired now some blue chip guys, and that helps us build the team, right? Because one of the reasons, like when you look at the football standpoint, is the Texans became so top heavy because they traded away some picks. They went all in like 3 or 4 players, and it ended up backfiring. And I just think you got to be careful with that line of thinking. Like Belichick was always wheeling and dealing, but the main key cog never changed in Tom. Like that's the big part. Like the Niners are changing. Like draft the guy.
Right.
That's always what I lean for with the quarterback. Find your guy, draft him, believe in him, and cultivate him to greatness.
Amen.